Hello, and a warm welcome to This Woman's Work, a space where you can hear and read about some amazing women, the fantastic jobs they do, and the paths that have led them to where they are today. So, welcome to break room number 3. I'm here with the absolutely gorgeous, which I appreciate you can't see right now, so you'll have to go to social, which is another reason to go to social, to see a lovely picture of Stella. Hi, Stella.
Thank you. Hello.
So, at the end of break room 2, when I was chatting to Nicky, and we were very much chatting through gender in the workplace, equality in the workplace, it kind of brought us to a point of wondering what younger people than us, because we were just too oldies, what younger people thought of gender in the workplace, equality in the workplace. And that is why you're here, Stella.
Perfect.
Because you are the younger person's representative today. Because how old are you for the audience?
25.
25. I mean, that's not... It is young, but I bet you probably don't feel like you're really
Not
young,
at all.
do you?
No.
So we're just going to get into it, if that's
Perfect.
all right.
Can't
So
wait.
first things first, though, do you want to just tell everyone a little bit what you do, what your background is?
Absolutely. So currently I am a shows operations coordinator. So involved in that is agricultural shows, horse trials across the country, right up into Scotland, down to Devon, organising us as Jules getting there. So Jules, the country clothing brand, is a really, really great company to work for. So that's where I'm at currently at the moment, and I love it. I went to university for 4 years and studied geography up in Edinburgh, which was great.
And what were you thinking of doing with that at the end of your 4 years?
I had a meltdown about it. I really, really just did not know what it was that I wanted to do. So applied for a graduate scheme. I started looking at graduate schemes and thinking, what is it that I can do? What am I going to go into? And ended up applying for one in construction. In the construction yeah. So I feel like on the whole gender and equality, we're going to really pull out some interesting things here.
So graduate scheme in construction.
Yeah. A rotational graduate scheme. So basically I went through the core functions of the business.
Oh, because that is a big firm then, isn't it?
Huge, yeah. Absolutely massive. So there's, I want to say something like 30 operating companies across the country.
That's big, isn't it?
And massive. And again, like right up to Scotland, southwest, southeast, like all over. And it was a general management graduate scheme that involved me going through land and planning, commercial, construction, technical,
sales, marketing, everything.
We just did everything and gave everything a go, and it was meant to be a 2-year graduate scheme, but after about a year and 3-4 months, maybe even less than that, I just couldn't carry on. I hit a wall with it and just needed to go down a different direction. I think that's when it hit me that I was like, I've got no flipping clue what it is that I'm actually doing. Am I passionate about this? Is this where I see myself being? And throughout all of this time, like, I'm not saying this for the sake of the podcast and gender and for the sake of bringing it up, but there were, some times when I was thinking, that is not okay what you're saying, or some of the men that I had to work with were just awful men. Do you know what I mean?
How much older than you were then?
It would actually vary from department to department. The technical team tend to be quite a bit younger, whereas land department, they're quite a bit older. Especially the guy that I was working with, he was older. And then on the actual construction site, I didn't really experience anything that significant, not myself. Which is really interesting. At one point, I was the only woman working on site, and there was, I want to say, about 40-50 men. So every day it was turning up, and I
don't think you're funny. You're a hot woman as well.
Oh my God, no.
But you know what I mean? It's not like just... But let's be honest about it, it does make a difference, doesn't it?
They really embraced me and looked after me, and big shout out to the manager and the assistant manager on site at the time, because they were both really like gunning for me to go into like their function. And I think it was the first time in the grad scheme where actually I had someone really taking my side, saying, no, this isn't good enough and you do need to be busy.
Well, maybe like you say, you'd gone there, shown willing, looked eager, and they thought, thank God for this.
I was laying bricks some days, and I love that. Get involved. Like, that is what I thrive off of. So no, they really took to me in a great way, which was brilliant, but it just wasn't enough. Yeah, and I was like, this is not an environment in which I'm going to thrive in. Yeah, and I think that's so important these days, is to be able to thrive and to be ambitious and want to work hard for the company that you're working for. So I chatted to my mum, and she was like, I want you to put your resignation letter together. And I did. And I just sent it off and was like, I'm sorry, but I can't do this. I don't, like, it's not enough for me, blah, blah, blah. Got called in for a meeting and basically just laid it all out on the table and was like, this is who I am as a person. This is what your graduate scheme's offering. We're not working. And I said ultimately, like, I'm not sticking around.
It's not you, it's me.
Do you know what? It kind of came across like that. Yeah, because I was like,
trying to just sort of...
Yeah, it did kind of end up a bit like that, because I was like, a graduate scheme for some people is great. And I said to her, my boss, I was like, for some people, this is really, really working. You know, they found their niche and what it is that they can see themselves doing. And I just said, but for me, it hasn't worked, and it's just not going to work. Got another job and couldn't be happier. I absolutely flipping love it. And in such a different industry. Yeah. So I sort of touched on it at the beginning, but I'm working for Jules now, which is just colour, eccentricity,
it really is
personality, like, it's everything that I'd like to think that I am.
I mean, you'd have rocked up to that interview.
Yeah.
Looking on brand, not necessarily with the flaws, but do you know what I mean? In terms of like vibrancy.
I was literally wearing.
If anyone said fit, it would have been you.
I was literally wearing like a pair of really cute pink ballet flats, and I had like this giant collar blouse on with like bows all over it, like printed, not like actual embellished.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that my boss said. He was just like, I love that blouse, and I was like, thank you, I love your jumper. And it was like bright pink. He was wearing a pink jumper with these bright orange trousers, and I was like, I'm home. Like, this is where I need to be, and it just felt right. But obviously so diverse, because it's now really women heavy and a creative industry, so creative.
Yes.
And even with what I'm doing now, which is essentially, it doesn't sound like much when I speak about it, but as I touched on, we go to events across the country, and we basically sell clothes out of a marquee. But involved in that,
bringing the brand to life,
for sure, 100%.
At events,
but involved in that is just like booking electric, the actual marquee,
it's logistics, isn't it?
It's operations, logistics, all
which
that
you'll
kind of stuff. I love it. I absolutely love it.
So I guess, all right then, so let's have a little chat about Jules then.
Yeah.
What's that split like then, in terms of men, women, from what you've seen so far?
So in the head office, which I don't actually work out of the head office, I work out of a place called the SDC. So we've got the barn and the SDC, but we do sometimes work at the barn. Obviously Tom Jewell is, we keep saying back in the saddle. So he is top with another gentleman who's our CEO, and then alongside him or them, you've got a lot of, because we're split into like buying, VM, wholesale and partnerships, like all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, those sorts of roles tend to be more women.
Really?
And then, it's so funny how it just still naturally goes that way.
Female.
And these are people at like the top, and then in the more finance roles we've got men, and in merchandising that tends to be more senior roles that are men again. Which is really interesting,
but with maybe women under them,
with a lot of
doing the day-to-day stuff.
And then actually throughout each of these sort of different departments, I'd say we've got a really great mix of men and women, and all of them are brilliant. Everyone's so great. So but in the shows team, I mean, we're only a team of about 10, 11 of us. There's 5 guys. Our head of shows is a man, which is brilliant. He's amazing. But then in like the field team, we've only got one event manager that's assistant event manager, who's a guy. And then the supervisors, the event manager and the other assistant are all women.
Of course, because we get stuff done.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. But I think actually in this industry and with what it is that we do, it's great having that men-women mix.
Well, I guess that's what the sort of really interesting debate is. When Nicky and I were talking in the last break room, it was kind of one of those things of saying, I guess, what is what do you think? So you and your friends, if you think about, again, your besties and what they do for work, what do you think, do you expect to go into a place that is diverse? Is that, obviously you're saying that with construction, you've got in and you said it, obviously it's very much, but then equally you kind of expected that.
Yeah, for sure. I'd say...
Or do you not think about it?
I do think about it. One of the big things that I asked my boss when I went for this role that I'm in now was, what does it look like? Like, what does the team look like?
Interesting.
Just because I do think it's so important to have that balance, and I did really struggle with it being like so male dominated before.
Yeah.
Just because sometimes you want those girly chats about like what are you doing at the weekend? What have you got going on? I'm quite a sensitive person.
Sort of team camaraderie.
Yeah, 100%. And you just want to be able to have those personable chats sometimes. Whereas like guys can equally bring like a bit of banter and a bit of like, not tough love, but I mean, my colleague who's the resource coordinator and I'm ops, we work so closely together, but we perfectly balance each other out.
Yeah.
Like I'm there panicking about everything. Like, have people got passes? Are we even going to have a marquee when we get there? Like all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And he'll just be like, stop. Like, you've done it. It's fine. Like, and if it's not right, it will get sorted out. Which sometimes like my closest boss, the operations manager, she panics about everything too. So it's just...
But do you think that's interesting, isn't it? Because I think that is quite a female thing to do, because we're really concerned. We want to get the job done properly, get it done well. We're worried about people to make sure, is everyone okay? Is everyone happy?
Definitely.
You worry about people's feelings and stuff in a way that maybe guys don't as much. They'll think, well, if someone can't get in...
It is what it is.
Yeah.
The phrase is, we'll figure it out on site.
That person know, wouldn't we?
100%. Yeah. So, that it was something that I definitely considered. And speaking to friends, because when I found out that I was doing this podcast, I did want to find out what my friends sort of felt were going on and all of this kind of stuff in their lives and how they found coming into work after uni and all of that kind of stuff. And I've got another friend who's gone into the fashion industry, because I'm working in retail fashion, it is clothing at the end of the day, but she's gone into the fashion industry in a buying role for, again, like a pretty big company that operates across the country, but she's had an entirely different experience where the senior men have not taken well to her at all. So even if you've got like a mix in there, it's probably just down to the person sometimes.
I was going to say, that sounds like a personality thing. Well, or a culture thing.
Yeah, for sure. No offence, but especially if they're of an age.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean that in the nicest way possible. But I was thinking that like on the way here as well, and like sort of this softness and how people my age, younger, maybe slightly older, sort of view work and what it should be now. And even myself, who is so ambitious and wants to be super successful, I still massively think about, how is this making me feel?
Yeah.
What is my work-life balance? Am I happy doing this? And do I love it? And am I passionate? And not just about like the bottom line or the paycheck at the end of the month, because ultimately, like, that's not going to make you happy.
But you know what? That, I think, and this is again, Nicky and I were talking about, that's so different to when we were younger. Because me and my peers and friends and stuff, I mean, we stuck at jobs that we hated.
For sure.
Like, there was no idea of, am I happy, in this job, that kind of thing. It was really rare.
No, definitely.
And like nowadays, sort of your generation will kind of, I mean, you'll probably do a year, but equally... You chop and change about, whereas we were like, we've got to be there for like 5 years.
No, for sure.
That is such a healthy thing, though, isn't it?
And I think that was something that really scared me when I was in the process of leaving my previous job, was that I was like, well, how's this going to look on my CV? Like, I haven't even managed to complete a graduate scheme. Is someone going to think, she can't even stick out a graduate scheme, she's clearly not going to be able to stick out anything else? And that was a big fear that I had, was sort of like that, but also, am I going backwards? Am I remaining stagnant because of making the decision to leave? But mentally I was just like, I'm worth so much more than this, like I can't carry on. So that was a real sort of internal battle.
What did Jules ask you about that then, and what did you say?
So when I was, I know I need to remember all the timelines, so I had I had an interview quite early on into my previous job with Jules, but Jules was going through the acquisition, and it made everything a bit messy.
Yeah.
So really, I was in the recruitment process for probably about 3 months, which is a long old time. And when you're in a job that you're hating so much and you're thinking, I cannot leave this job unless I've got another job to go to, because again, that was something that I was constantly told by everyone around me, was that it's always easier to find a job when you're in a job.
Do you mean, when you say that, you mean older people?
Like no offence, but yeah.
But that's what your parents won't be much older than me, and that's what we were brought up with. And you can't leave a job without the job. You've got to do this. What do you
exactly? Stick it out. Come on, like, you know, we're not going to pick up the pieces.
Not happy?
Yeah,
you know,
no, for sure.
So your friend that's working in fashion,
yes,
is having a very different experience to you.
Entirely.
And is that because it's a bit more pressure? Do you think?
Yes. And I think the setup that she's got at work is very, very different from mine. So she is working for a company where the founders of this company are still there, and they're quite a bit older.
Right.
And she just says it's so ancient. Everything's so ancient. And they're tightening up on things. They're making people redundant. My friend, she's one of my best friends. And the last few times that I've seen her, I'm just like, how are you still doing this?
Yeah.
She said that she's taking on more work, not being paid anymore, but she's in an industry that she totally loves and wants to be in, that is opening up so many opportunities for her potentially in the future. But again, is in this whole kind of like, I shouldn't leave right now because I've got a really, really good opportunity here sort of thing. So yeah, she's having a really tricky time. But she's got senior men within her company that she just can't get on with at all. Just inappropriate, which unfortunately still happens these days.
Does it? Well, I guess we've not even really come on to that lately because... do you know what? I mean, it's interesting. I mean, my daughter's 14, 15.
Yeah.
And obviously, every chat I have with people, I go on about, you know, I'm so interested to know what it's going to be like for her.
Yeah.
Because I guess you've not really then maybe, have you seen the benefit of all the Me Too movement? You've seen a bit of benefit of it, you know, the sort of the feminist movement, the Me Too movement, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like speaking out and all of that kind of stuff.
Maybe it's not really kicked in yet.
How do I want to verbalise this? I'm thinking. No, I don't think so.
It's kicked in yet.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think there's still such... I mean, to that extreme. I'm not talking about that extreme of Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
Not that extreme at all. But comments and verbal comments and things like that.
Even from guys your own age?
Have I personally experienced anything from guys my own age? Not within the workplace. Not when I was working in the construction industry.
But what about even socially?
What, out and about? Yeah. Entirely different story. Yes, 100%.
So that hasn't changed at all?
Not the verbal side of things, not at all. And that's what my friend has sort of struggled with, but with an older generation of person, is inappropriate comments which are just so uncomfortable. When it's like, you could be my dad. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the... You know how people are like, there's all these different pronouns and all of this different stuff that's coming up and I can't keep up with it and all of this kind of stuff. I'd sort of put like some of the expressions and phrases and things that are said by people in a similar sort of bracket to that, in the way that some people don't clock that actually that isn't appropriate anymore.
But the verbal side of it is still...
It's still prolific, yeah. I mean, that was one thing that I really struggled with in my first workplace post-uni. And it stuck with me so much. We were invited... So when I joined, they had started a women's network at work. And it was basically this place where it was only ever online, but women, men, everyone could join in these really interesting seminars where we would hear from senior women within the business, or they'd do like particular talks about things, which were brilliant. And there was one woman who, I can't remember what her role was, but she was extremely high up. She was one of the board of directors. She was big cheese, yeah. And I remember saying to my land director, I'm actually not going to be available for like this hour. I'm heading into this women's network talk. So speaking, and this is what she's talking about. And he just turned around and went, well, the only way she's got that job is by laying on her back. And I was just like, what? Like, how can you think that isn't an okay thing to say?
But the fact that he even thinks it, there'll be other people, that poor woman will have a load of men
100%.
thinking that she doesn't deserve her job.
Yeah, and...
Because he just said it, didn't he?
And
he
it was
probably
so
said
flippant.
what loads of people think.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like, with my friend's scenario and working in fashion, I think that's kind of what I'm trying to get to, is like, these flippant comments get made, and actually you've got to be seriously careful about who you're saying them around, because she could easily go and speak to someone in HR or whatever.
But she doesn't. But do any of her colleagues, though?
I haven't broached that subject with her.
Yeah,
and
I wonder how much, for want of a better phrase, whistleblowing
for sure
actually goes on. But then it all depends. Surely it probably depends on the culture.
Yeah, because that was a comment that I never brought to the attention of anyone. And he made a few comments about when I first joined, and I was still my bubbly self, like trying to give everything a go. He'd make comments about nail extensions, about the clothes I was wearing. He'd do this weird thing where like he'd walk up behind me and like scare me, and I'd be like, "What are you doing?" Like, that's really, really strange.
Yeah.
But never felt comfortable to talk to anyone about it, because I was like, I want a job at the end of this, and he's more senior than I am, and like all of this kind of stuff. And I think that is probably across the board, whether you're a young woman or man, there are certain things that you just don't feel comfortable talking about. Yeah.
But the issue is probably that your male counterparts weren't experiencing that, though, were they?
Yeah, probably not. Yeah.
So, but like you say, you can't say it, 'cause it almost feels like career suicide.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, definitely. A lot of things do, I think, though.
Yeah.
Feel like that. Sometimes you're like, I just don't know what way to turn with things.
I know you have a little life in you yet. I know you have a lot of strength left. I know you have a little life in you yet. I know you have a lot of strength.
Because that's obviously been, if anything, that's probably been the hottest topic, isn't it? About sort of gender pay, the gender pay gap, which still isn't right. Still a lot of work to do. Is that something that you're going to be mindful of, just making sure that you are... So you've talked about your team, you're paid equally.
Yeah. So when I took the role for operations coordinator, the resource coordinator role was also in existence, and I was told that it was the exact same pay for both.
Well, so they volunteered that information.
Yeah, they said it's the exact same pay. But when I went through the interview process, I didn't know how much that was.
Right.
So, interestingly, and possibly fortunately, because this will be an interesting fact for your podcast, I was sat next to a lady that works in recruitment the other day over in the barn when I was working there, and she was like, "Do you mind if I just ask you a question a second?" And she said, "Do you think that pay should be advertised on jobs?" And I said, "Yeah, I 100% think it should be. Like, in this day and age, people need to know where they stand with things and how much you think that job is worth," sort of thing.
Yes.
And she said, "Okay, that's really, really good, because I'm currently going through the process with the senior management team and the directors to basically say, like, I think we should be advertising how much."
Because it's so common now. Salaries are just not stated.
Literally, across the board, throughout anything.
Yet they ask you that question.
Yeah.
What are your salary expectations? And of course, you might be there going, "Oh, I don't know what to put here.
Literally,
I don't want to put myself out of a job.
For sure.
I don't want to undersell myself."
And
it's really mean. It's cruel.
Yeah, and when I first went for the job, I got I was asked, "What are your salary expectations?" And I said a number, and she went, "Oh, you're just nowhere near." And I didn't even think, as in I was way too over, but I didn't even think I'd asked for that much. I hadn't asked for much more than, what my graduate scheme was.
Yeah.
Because again, I was conscious of this whole like, okay, if I'm leaving a job, I need to take a step forward and not back and see that development and that growth. But so I was chatting to this lady at work, and she basically said that women are less likely to negotiate pay than men.
What?
Yeah. So I found that so interesting. So,
because we're almost just grateful to get the bloody job.
As in like, we'll just sort of be a bit more like, "Oh, okay, like that is what it is, like that's
people
fine."
pleasing.
Yeah, literally, like exactly that, and that's exactly what she said. Whereas a guy is more likely to be like, would you entertain like this number, for example, and then they negotiate it back or whatever, which is probably a contribution as to why like the gender pay gap is still such a thing as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, I found that so interesting.
Which actually closes, because at the very, very start, I said to you about Break Room 1, didn't I? And about the fact that we'd said at being older, we came to the point of saying employers aren't doing a good enough job, but also we're not putting ourselves out there. It was like it was almost like a, you know, and you're saying the same thing there, really.
Yeah, no, definitely.
It's women aren't playing hardball enough.
Yeah, putting ourselves out enough, which I think interestingly makes me think about jobs and what's actually available and on offer now. Is I would like to say that I did have balls when I applied for this job, just because I don't have any like events experience per se. I held a couple of events at uni with a best friend of mine to help raise money for charity, and that was amazing. But other than that, I hadn't really got events experience, whereas this required like that events experience. So still went on and applied for the job and was just fortunate to get it. And I think in that way, that probably held me back from negotiating anything,
right? Because
I was like, I just want this job more than anything. So therefore I'm happy to just go for what it is that they're offering. So yeah, I do find that really interesting.
Okay. And you've only, how long have you been in the role now?
Since the 8th of January, 2024.
Yeah. Bloody hell, that has gone quick, isn't it? That's just
so
scary.
quick. Yeah.
Okay. But you've obviously passed your probation period.
No.
Oh, was it 6 months?
6 months. Yeah. They really weren't sure about me.
But no, that is common now. That's normal.
I know, it's crazy.
So at 6 months then, is Stella going to play hardball then?
I definitely want to know about career progression.
Yeah.
And what the next steps are. I don't know whether this is something that you thought about when you were sort of starting out in the world of work, but I do think about where I need to get to before I have children. And this is actually another thing that I went to an HBF conference.
Sorry, Karen.
No, it's okay. No, I went to an HBF conference and again heard from this really insightful, amazing, aspirational woman who was high up in sales for Owl Homes, I believe it was.
Okay.
At the time, she was really interesting. And she basically said, like, if you haven't got to where you want to be in your career by the time you're having kids, like, forget it, because you're not going to get there once you've had them.
It's so true.
Yeah. Do you think it is?
It is true, yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
gosh.
It's definitely been true for my generation.
Okay. And it was one of the things, and I kind of welled up when I wrote it into my group chat, was the girls then... I've got a great group of girls from uni and they were the ones that I went to just being like, guys, this is what I'm getting up to, or like, girls, this is what I'm getting up to, what's your opinion on this? And they were all like, oh, this is so interesting, this is so amazing. And then I basically finished it off by just saying, like, I have this big fear that I'm loving my job right now, but all I will amount to being is a mum and wife maybe one day.
Yeah.
Just because of all of the stuff that you keep hearing. It's like, how in this day and age do you progress? Like, do you have to give things up, or can you do it all, or all of this kind of stuff? So you're not seeing enough dialogue for you from women or from anyone telling you how to make it work. And maybe I'm not looking for it enough because I'm so focused on what's just like going on in like my surroundings. Yeah, no, for sure. I don't want to take the back foot, but I don't know where like kids in all of this like impacts my career, which is why like career progression and what the next few years looks like for me is just so important. You want to see the step up and the progression and what am I taking on, and I hate remaining stagnant and feeling like I'm just planing on the exact same space for a long period of time. I absolutely cannot stand it. I want to know where I'm going.
And is that similar for a lot of your friends and peers then?
I think so.
A clear career ladder is really important.
No, definitely. I'd say I've got a really good mix of friends. So like a lot of them, and the boys in particular, have all moved to London. And they're living sort of like that super fast-paced life, working in amazing jobs for big companies like PwC, finance companies, doing all of this amazing stuff. And then the girls sort of took a bit of time out before heading.
Oh, how interesting.
A lot more travelling was involved with the girls. And some of them are working for more sort of charity organisations, not necessarily like earning the big bucks like some of the guys are. And then I've got a couple friends that have gone into HR. Obviously one friend in fashion. Another one of the girls is currently working for a prison and all of this kind of stuff in a psychology department. So all taking like really, really different routes, but all very financially conscious, because in like for us, holidays are important.
Yes.
Being able to do things, see friends, and life is so flipping expensive.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, if I could say something about this, is I don't think the current working world, especially in places like London, recognises the cost of living. And even though there's the minimum, like there's the cost of living wage, like all of this kind of stuff, when you actually tot up what that amounts to, it is not sufficient if for anyone, even if they're not doing anything. And I don't think workplaces are recognising that today.
Salaries haven't even remotely kept up.
They haven't kept up at all.
No.
And also, a lot of my friends actually struggled to get work because of the desire for experience.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've either got to do like a grad programme and get paid fuck all.
Literally. Or go into a job right at the bottom and again get paid fuck all.
Yeah.
Or
in amidst a cost of living crisis, where everything's really expensive.
Yeah.
And you're probably gonna have to get a second job.
Yeah.
To pay your bills.
But this whole thing about wanting experience and 2-3 years experience and all of this kind of stuff, when we've just come out of uni for 4 years, it's just ridiculous. And that's another thing that I just don't think the working world for young people is recognising these days.
Do you think that's because there's a bit of a trend to go for because I guess if you've not gone to uni, you've got 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Because nowadays, I guess you don't have to go to uni, do you? And I guess there's a lot of people, it's so expensive to go to university now, isn't it? That a lot of people are choosing more, I guess, like apprenticeship type roles.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Therefore, those kind of jobs are geared for them, surely.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But not for uni.
No, which causes
so we're in this real void.
Yeah.
God, I was in a void in another break room chat as well.
Yeah. That's definitely what it feels like.
It's
sometimes.
a weird void.
Yeah. Which is, why you've got to be confident and go for the jobs where you don't necessarily have experience. But if they're not asking for it, just do it anyways, even if it seems entirely out of your comfort zone. That's what I ended up doing.
But you are so right, though. Oh, and I do feel guilty now because, we all know that young people just cannot buy. Let's face it, can't buy houses. The whole thing is the property market, everything else,
it's crazy.
Is geared to it's priced to young people out, which wasn't the case. I was able to buy a house when I was like 22,
which is amazing,
on my own, and get a great mortgage. I know there's some stuff on offer, but it is still not there. And the cost of living crisis is definitely affecting. So not only can you not get a job, well, no, you have got a job, but do you know what I mean? It's really hard to get a job.
Yeah, no, it is really tough.
Then you're not going to get paid very much.
Yeah, maybe I'm just complaining.
Debt, you've got your student debt.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of different factors that go into things, which is why I think quite often, and I definitely did it, I thought I was going to come out of uni and be on 50k a year, but it is so unrealistic.
Yeah.
Unless you go into something, I don't know, super fancy or really land on your feet.
Those guys that your male friends.
And they're doing great and they absolutely love it, but then it goes back to I wouldn't want to do that anyway, so whatever. But
it's very stressful as well what they're doing.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's around the clock, isn't it? You never really switch off with that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different factors that go into things, that's for sure. But you definitely don't come out of uni earning what you think you're going to because you've got a degree.
No.
Yeah, which is interesting. I'm a great believer in manifesting, and if you want something, you can go out and get it, like whatever that looks like. Just
and
believe
are your
in yourself.
friends the same? Is that?
Yeah, I'd love to think so. I think for some of them right now,
it's tough.
It's tough. It's really tough. I've got friends that, like I have said, have moved to London and they're working in roles that are just not what they expected them to be. but are still...
Probably not. And are they what they applied for?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes
I
and
guess so.
no,
Yes
yeah.
and no. I think with any job, you end up picking up stuff that you don't expect to do. I do my boss's credit card. Do I enjoy doing it? Absolutely not. But is it part of the job? Yes. Was it mentioned during interview? No. But I still do it anyways. But that sort of stuff, you end up picking up other things that, like, you don't expect. But I think actually from a lot of what they've said, it's workplace attitude. And like I sort of mentioned like softness earlier, and a softer workplace where people recognise mental health and the need to take a minute out and stuff like that. That is so important these days. Having that balance and finding that balance. And I am so lucky to have found that with my job.
Yeah.
But I have friends that have not had that same experience, and
But they want it.
But they want it, definitely. And I think for a couple of them it will be, we're going to stick out in London for a couple of years, we'll say we've done it, and then we'll come back to that slower pace of life, and a bit of a softer environment and all of this kind of stuff. But it's just small things like a smile in the morning that sometimes you just don't get.
Yeah.
And is that a generational thing? And is that a female way that, because I think sometimes we have this experience, and I think I definitely experienced it in my previous job, where speaking to my boss on the day that I decided to hand in my resignation, she said to me, like, I had to fight so hard for where I got to in this talent and diversity role that I am a bit tough now. Do you know what I mean? Like, but in the same way, it's like, that doesn't work for everyone. Like, we need a bit of compassion, and like we are willing to work hard for you, but equally we need that recognition back sort of thing.
Yes.
And I've got friends that are still experiencing like that now, so that's interesting.
But I guess I guess it's maybe interesting in the sense because my generation just didn't even remotely think we could have it.
Yeah, but even like mental health was not much of a discussion.
Oh God, no.
Yeah. I think recognising people's differences has definitely developed massively.
Okay.
Across the board. Whether that's neurodiversity or how you identify and things like that. I do think it's better recognised.
But do you think you would, or your friend would feel comfortable saying to somebody, I mean, even potentially in an interview, I'm dyslexic?
It's tricky because I think you need to. Especially
you
in some
do,
roles.
don't you? But what would you think the judgment of that would be?
I think it would make me worry that I'm less likely to get the job. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. That would definitely cross my mind. Because you want someone to think that you're the absolute bee's knees. And you don't want to say anything bad or negative. But there's nothing wrong with saying the truth. There shouldn't be anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So it's maybe really starting, but not quite. So it's there maybe from a gender.
Yeah, I would have thought so. Well, even like my previous job, having a talent and diversity board, that is phenomenal. Like,
so in that construction,
yeah, I think that is absolutely brilliant.
And was that a tick boxing exercise? Do you think, or was it real? Okay.
Yeah, I would like to think not. But they were definitely doing some great work in order to develop certain people within the business into more senior management roles. Even the graduate scheme being in existence is obviously a good thing.
Yeah.
But the talent and diversity sector of the company was way too small to manage the scale of what it was that they were trying to achieve, which is why I think ultimately like the graduate scheme just did not work for me, because my expectations were not well managed whatsoever. Like, I was expecting to come in and be having a massive impact and make a difference, whereas like they don't actually have the time to then micromanage you because they're in a head office in York, for example, but then you're based in North Midlands. They can't like keep an eye on everything, which is why like that lacked. But the actual work that they wanted to do and produce, and their goals were really good.
Yeah, interesting.
And I think the talent and diversity board is really interesting. I think it's really great. Yeah.
Right, I'm really conscious of time. I've got to let you get back to your life, because I'm assuming that as opposed to you have one. What's next then for you?
Gosh, what a question.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay at Jules for a while, I think.
I can see you there.
Yeah. For as long as...
Because also, now your foot's in the door, surely, because Jules from memory, they're the kind of company that quite like recruiting from within.
And I love that about the place.
Yeah.
I really think it's so important. It's like nurturing that talent you've got within the business to then grow and develop people further. I think that's such an appealing thing for a young person, for any person, but like particularly for me, it was so great to hear that during interview. But yeah, no, I want to stay at Jules for definitely as long as Will is in Leicester.
Yeah.
But beyond that, right now, I have no clue. We'll wait and see what happens. But yeah, I'm just a great believer in whatever is meant to be will be, and whatever happens, happens, and everything
and I guess
happens
you're
for
just
a
going to
reason.
keep your nose to the ground at Jules, and if other opportunities come up...
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah.
So I'm going to do my 3 final questions, which I ask everyone.
Okay.
What life advice would you give your younger self? It can be any version, because we've not even discussed what you were like, because normally in a one-to-one podcast, we chat through, like, what were you like when you were younger, that kind of thing. So this can be any version of your younger self, but is there advice you wish you'd known when you were younger? It could even be at uni.
What comes to the top of my head is just be kinder to yourself and understand that you're doing fine. Yeah, just keep going
You're
and
okay
everything.
exactly as you are.
You're in the right place. You're where you're meant to be. Just be kind to yourself. So that would be what I'd say. Fab.
Question number 2.
Yeah.
What advice do you think your older self would give you now? So do you know what we're still going to go with? Let's say 50-year-old Stella.
Okay.
So if you think about what's 50-year-old Stella doing now...
Yeah.
Probably, hopefully bossing it in a career. She's got kids, she's got family, she's not sacrificed her career. She's going to figure out a way
100%.
to not do it. What advice do you think she would give you now?
Keep going and don't lose sight of yourself. Especially in like the relationship side of things. Like don't sacrifice, like you say, don't sacrifice things for other people. Make sure that you're getting to where you sort of need to be and keep going on your own path. Ultimately, the only person you can ever really rely on is yourself.
Yeah.
And it's only yourself that's going to get you up and out of bed in the morning and sort of tell you to keep going and things like that. So, yeah, I think just, keep going. Don't sacrifice things for other people.
Okay, then the last question is always a mantra to throw out there to anyone. Men, women, if Stella had a T-shirt, what would it say?
All pigs can fly if you put wings on it.
Brilliant.
Yeah. If you want something to happen, make it happen.
You've closed that whole loop of your life there with that mantra, haven't you?
Just do it. Just honestly do it. If you want to do something, whatever it takes, you just go on and do it, as long as it's the right thing that you're doing.
On that note, so thank you very much, Stella.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you would like to hear more about this chat, see some pics and read about how to get started in this industry and or this role, then please go to our website www.thiswomanswork.org. The link is on this podcast page and across our socials. Sincere thanks.